All right, welcome to a new special series, kind of an agent spotlight series that we've done about a year or two ago and bringing it back again today. I have a special guest on with me today, Gabe Hernandez from the Texas area with decades of experience in the industry, where he's going to share some thoughts about himself, his thoughts about legacy in the industry. And then we're going to take that next portion of the conversation today and discuss post COVID, what it was like 5 years ago, what it was like 5 years before that, and what it's like now, kind of how these different eras of the industry have taken place. So, Gabe, I appreciate you being on with us today. For those watching, introduce yourself so they know who you are and, your legacy in the industry.
Hey, Chris, man, thanks for having me on. Um, so my name's Gabe Hernandez. My dad opened our agency back in 1974. So we just crossed over the 50-year mark as far as our agency. And I didn't start working with him till 2013. And so, of course, we started, that was kind of like pre-Facebook, madness, as I
Mm-hmm.
like to call it. And around 2017, we started running ads. As a matter of fact, my sister's a marketer, and she started running our ads. And dude, it was nuts. Like, I'll just be honest, it was crazy. We were generating high quality leads for like 50 cents, right? That doesn't exist anymore. But uh,
Not at all.
but it was crazy. So for 2017 and 2018, we were Transamerica's second highest permanent life policy agency. We came in second back to back years. And so that was 17, 18. And those were, for lack of a better word, those were kind of like the good old days. Um, and then COVID hit in 20. My dad passed away in 21 from COVID. So, you know, almost, well, 4 years almost to the day, he passed 4/16/21. But 4 years later, we've definitely seen, I don't know if you'd call it like a shift. There was pre-COVID, now it's post-COVID. And, thank the good Lord, our agency's still doing well. We generate all our own leads in-house. And so that helps for sure. But it's different. It's different. The leads are different. The quality of the leads are different. I know that there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of great marketers like you guys, like Toolkit, who have figured out ways to, use this technology to help agents. And so, yeah, we're still doing it. And it was just interesting to see kind of like the industry making changes, and maybe even still making changes. Some companies didn't stay around. They couldn't survive COVID. Some
Yeah.
companies did really well, and they're going to be around for generations now. So it's just interesting. And you've been doing this as long as I have, or maybe a little longer. And so it's just been real interesting seeing, like, at the end of the day, I think, right, that if you work hard, if you take care of people, if you do right things, kind of, it doesn't matter what's happening around you, all those elements around you that we can control. The good agents, they still, they're still doing it. And I have lots of friends who still do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I wrote so many notes down just off of your introduction to kind of run in all kinds of different directions from, but I'm going to start with an easy one I didn't prep you on, but I think this perspective is super important. There are situations where with Facebook marketing, you can hire someone and they do it for you, done for you marketing. However, the cost is, whatever their legacy is, they set all that stuff up and let it run. Then there's do it yourself. Like, you watch a video, you figure it out, you set up the ads, and whatever happens. Then there's you buy leads from a vendor. Where do you think that an agent should do one or the other? Like, I think, in my personal opinion, an agent should focus on selling and producing, because that's what your license says, insurance producer. Doesn't say marketer on it or lead generator. But I think there is a certain point or a certain space in the industry for done for you marketing or doing it yourself. Like, what are your thoughts on those different ways people can do Facebook marketing?
Man, I'm a firm believer that if you're just entering this space, and when I say that, I mean you've been doing this for less than 5 years, you need to connect with a great vendor like you guys. And there's lots of vendors out there, you know that. But but you need to connect with a great vendor, and you need to first learn. You need to learn the industry, and you need to learn how to sell. Because no matter, like, yes, don't get me wrong, leads are important, but if you have a great lead and a horrible agent, you have no sale. And so I would say for somebody who's just getting in, be a producer first. Be a producer first. We I started in 2013. We didn't start running ads till 2017. So there was 4 years there where I had to learn the industry. Of course, I had a great mentor. My dad had been doing it for a long time. But even then, he was seeing a transition in the industry. And so we kind of got to see that turn together.
Hmm.
Um, and I also think it's a lot about like personality type. There's some guys that are confident they can do it on their own, and they don't want to pay somebody else to do it. But even somebody like me, who I am running my own ads, I would say that the amount of money we save by doing it ourselves is not a huge difference if we were to pay somebody to do it. I'm kind of a control freak by nature. I like to see all the stats, and I like to see all the logistics, and so we've been doing it for a while. Um, and like even right now, the conversation we had before this this recording was just that, like, agents are tough to sell leads to. I don't care how good your leads are. There's always going to be an agent that's going to complain about the leads. And I think those guys probably are like, well, I can do this by myself. And sure, man, go and try. But there's
Hmm.
other people that have been doing it for a long time. They understand the algorithm better. And I don't know how to say that in the fanciest way, but they just, we kind of understand the algorithm when it goes crazy, and we know how to course correct. And I think a lot of guys don't, and they end up losing a lot of money to Facebook itself, or to IG, or to Google Ads, or whatever medium you're using. You end up losing more if you're not really good at it. And that's,
Yeah.
that's not a shot at anybody. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think when it comes to lead generation, and we'll kind of segue after this, regardless of what vendor you're buying it from or if you're doing it yourself, it probably falls into really three different tiers, just like when you're closing a sale. There's low intent, low effort lead generation, like easy, like the click and auto click stuff. Low
Right.
cost, low intent, you can get them
Right.
filled quickly. You can buy them from anybody. There's like the medium intent leads. You take them to a separate landing page. They have to type in some information. The cost's a little higher, the intent's a little higher. And then you get the high intent stuff. Well, we asked 20 questions, 15 questions. Your favorite vegetable? Do you want to be buried? And it requires a person to type them all out. They're high intent. They come in super slow, and they're more expensive.
Yeah.
I think the challenge too with a lot of folks is that you look at things on such a micro scale in this industry. I was guilty of it this weekend. I'm talking to you and I'm getting frustrated about one thing, and you're like, well, doing it for 50 years. I'm like, okay, let's talk data together because that speaks far bigger than emotion. Do you feel like agents in your observation, or maybe even in your own experience, sometimes lose their head over the micro issues of this business?
Um, Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, you know, the, but I'll also say that sometimes the devil's in the details. And I think agents get lost in the small stuff, because it's not always, for whatever reason, it's not always presented as well as it should be. Or you're kind of just trying to cover your tracks, as far as, like, is the IMO I'm working for, are they reputable? Are the companies we're working for, are they reputable? Like, Mutual of Omaha, right? It's a great company. They offer great rates, maybe the best. But did you know that in 6 or 12 months, they're going to send your client a postcard asking them if they want to increase their coverage, and you're going to get cut out of that deal? Like, you know, so I would say that agents definitely fixate on the little stuff, Um, but it's because that little stuff sometimes can turn into bigger stuff. And agents, not to be the devil's advocate here, but without agents, none of this happens. IMOs don't eat, companies don't eat, and in this world of AI and in this world of just this crazy technology that we have, I think still sometimes the agent gets overlooked as replaceable,
Hmm.
and I think good IMOs know that the good agents, they're not replaceable, because they've been doing this for a long time. You've been doing this for a long time. We've been doing this for a long time. And
Yeah.
and kind of the guys that come into this agents industry, they don't last very long because it is difficult, even with all the technology around us.
Yeah. I think it's important to have perspective and sometimes patience in the pursuit of where we're trying to go. So let's talk about our key topic that we wanted to unpack together. COVID before, during, and after from the agent's perspective, not the IMO, not a lead vendor, not a carrier, but like ground level, lived it before, during, and after, and what thoughts we have from there. We were both in the business pre-COVID. Your family's business has been around for half a century, which is incredible. Um, were you on the Hawaii Transamerica trip that I was on? What was that, like 2018 or was that 2017 or
So first we went to Hawaii, and then the next year we went to Mexico. So yeah, we were there.
okay.
I
All
think
right.
that's
Yeah.
where I met you.
May have been. Yeah. So industry was a lot different back then. Long form paper applications, phone interviews. You were lucky if there was only 3 signatures on an application. People had to physically go like this on paper to buy insurance majority of the time. And direct mail was less expensive. Facebook leads were, a dime a dozen because nobody was doing it but a few people. It was very different. What was it like from your perspective, pre-COVID?
Um, I'm not anti-progress, right? Everything changes, and you either adapt or you die. And so, and I carry the nostalgia of working with my dad. So pre-COVID, some of my favorite years ever. Um, and yes, things were not as advanced technologically. There were still phone interviews. I mean, Transamerica, you remember the app, you remember the app. It was 12 pages long, it was everything long form, unless you were going to put it in your computer and then, type out the name and the date of birth and the social and stuff like that. And then, connect that to the pages that they signed, and then I don't know if I'm showing my age here, but then fax it in.
Yeah.
Fax
Max
every
it
app.
in. Yes.
What was that? 1-800-235-4782, right? I mean,
What?
it's ingrained in my brain because I entered it a million times.
Oh my gosh.
Um, and so today, it's totally different. Everything's different. You better have an iPad. Uh, you better, if you're going to do it over the phone, you better be working with a company that's phone friendly, that has a
Mhm.
text to sign or a voice to sign or an email to sign. And so I don't know, man. I don't think one was better than the other. Um, but pre-COVID was I think we've alluded to this, that nobody was ready for that,
Mhm.
and the suspense, and what's going to happen. Are we all going to are all of our agencies going to go under collectively? That was like that March 2020, April 2020, and it turns out, I don't know, did you do record numbers from 20 to 23, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, that accountant would say that those years were wild.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly know what to put my finger on with it, but people rose to the occasion, capitalized on opportunity, and some people use it as an excuse to finally blame their failure on something else. I feel like a lot of agents are just looking for something else to blame but themselves. Well, it was the leads, it was the territory, it was the IMO, it was the pandemic. Finally, I can look my wife in the face and say, that's why this didn't work.
Yeah,
Well, honey, did you go to work? Well, I
right.
couldn't. I couldn't actually go to work. So, it was interesting. Like, I mean, you have something that most folks want over time, the power of a book of business to build off of. Did a lot of the business you wrote in your agency come during from your book of business during that time?
So I would say it was like 60-40. Definitely we were writing more um, just book based, going back to our clients, their family. But the leads were good. You remember the leads were good, and maybe even the leads were all kind of medium to high intent, regardless of where they came from. They were all
Mhm.
kind of medium to high intent because they knew that there was a possibility, that they weren't getting out of that pandemic alive. And I don't know about you, and I don't mean to sound morbid, but we had a lot of claims
Yeah.
from 2020 to 2023. We had a lot of claims,
Yeah.
and so
American Amicable said the number once. I don't remember it, so I won't quote it, but it was substantial. Old American gave me the number once. I don't remember it. It was substantial.
yeah,
And the wildest thing, if you really want to get into the nuances of this industry, is they released new CSO tables in December of 2019, like the formulary that decides how long they think people are going to live, how much stuff should cost, and then COVID hit. And I think the actuaries and the people that wrote out those numbers probably regret the timeline that caused
yeah,
that to happen, but they
yeah,
can't control that. And there was new products that were released. There was products that were rebuilt. The era of e-applications was just beginning,
yeah.
and they were not expecting a mass transition into telesales. And then from there, a mass transition into poor quality business on top of high mortality. Like the industry took it in the face pretty hard in ways that maybe we don't always appreciate sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the testament to that is that not everybody made it. Good companies and not so good companies, they're gone, and they're never coming back. And
Yeah.
so, I don't know, maybe it was the cream rising to the top, as so to say. Companies that had their stuff together, they're gonna, they lasted and they're here today. And now we have to readjust. But, post COVID, I'm not complaining. I don't know about you, but I hear recently, and when I say recently, I mean like since from January to today, you're definitely getting a client that's a little bit more eager to meet in person over, buying over the phone right now. I don't know if that's because they all got scammed during the COVID. I'm not just saying by life insurance guys. I'm saying by, anybody that could take advantage of a senior probably tried to. And so, I don't know. I don't know. And here's my question to you. Do you think things kind of revert back to the way they were as far as, a lot more in person, or do you think this is here just to stay forever?
I think everything in life swings on a pendulum.
Yeah,
Politics,
absolutely.
the industry, relationships, things come full circle in a way. Maybe the pendulum actually goes around in circles. But I think we went from the complete wild open security word signatures. Like, who thought that was going to be good? Like, what board? Somewhere in a boardroom, they thought this is brilliant. We're going to put down a security word like vegetables.
Uh-huh.
Sir, that doesn't seem smart. No, we're going to do it. Oops. But I think it all kind of swings back into the middle where people do appreciate human interaction.
Yeah,
It's probably easier to work face to face than it's ever been before if you're going to go to work, because how many people are out knocking doors?
right,
Nobody that's coming in new to the business is wanting to do that. But if you
right.
just take the leads and knock the door, the odds are more in your favor than they
Yeah,
were the prior 5 years.
I
Um,
agree with that 100%.
I think the leads aren't cheaper, but nothing in life is cheaper. That Nick Frumpkin would say the average premium is higher, so the leads aren't more expensive. Um, I think that technology has forced out an age group of individuals who shouldn't be in the business anymore. I had somebody reach out and want to get started and was going to get started and then said to me, "Well, where do I send in the print fax in the application?"
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't. You don't. We
right,
don't do that. That doesn't work that way. So it's really sort of swinging back into a middle spot because the carriers also need persistent business. They need quality business. They need things that stick into the sixth year to make a penny. And
right.
if the persistency is garbage, that's why they can't maintain their space in the market. So I think to answer the question, it sort of swung all the way to the left and it's now easing its way back into somewhere close to what we were used to seeing, but with more technology advanced.
I think that's fair. And I think it's good. not that COVID was good. I mean, I lost my dad. He was my best friend. We worked together every day for almost 10 years. And so not that COVID was good, but if there was ever an industry that needed some correction and some direction, it was our industry.
Yeah.
Just archaic ideas and archaic systems. Eventually, they were going to have to change.
Yeah.
And so, if things are going to somewhere find themselves in the middle, I don't think there's an agent that's going to complain about that. And even the older guys, like I have some friends that are older guys, that were selling back in the 70s and the 80s, and they've all kind of just come around. It is different, but it's not difficult.
No.
And so, yeah, I mean, good on every agent that survived COVID, and success to you going forward. I think the next decade looks really good, for our industry.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting. When I started as a paramedic, we had progressed from paper charting to electronic charting, but that was years, a decade before most of the insurance space progressed from paper charting to electronic charting.
Right.
I took a technology step backward, exiting emergency services and into the insurance industry. I'm like, there's way
Yeah.
more money here, and we're doing this. Like
Yeah.
this is wild, but
Yeah.
it's finally caught up. Um, what do you think your preferences are when it comes to carrier selection without getting name specific? You've written a lot of business with a lot of companies over a lot of years. What are things that you look for in a product or a carrier to give them business?
And we talked about this last week. It helps when there's a company that has something to offer every demographic of health. That helps. I know that, one thing that's kind of really different in the agency today is that there's really no carrier loyalty, which means, most guys don't really care where they send the app, as long as that's what the client qualifies for, and it's a good decent rate, so that you don't get rewritten by some other agent in 3 months. So I understand that, and I'm not knocking that, but I think there's still something to say for a carrier that is willing to take a little bit bigger risk to offer multiple products, to where anybody, minus somebody on, hospice, or something like that, somebody that has Alzheimer's, those things are tough, or HIV, that's difficult. I'm not talking about that. But, if there's anything that I've seen post COVID more so than pre COVID, is that, carriers have all really tightened up. I had a client who we wrote him an app in 2019, and since then, his health hasn't really changed a whole lot, except that now his diabetes has progressed, and so, he used to be just on the pill. Now he's on insulin, and it was just crazy trying to get him an app today than just a little while ago in 2019. And then, he's a cool guy, so he understood, but, the rate difference from then to now was like almost a 40% difference in rate. And he can afford it, but not everybody can. And so, just stuff like that. All the carriers, they're going to do what's in their best interest. I think, not to be controversial, but they're not going to do most of the time what's in the agent's best interest. That's not, they have no loyalty to us. And I've seen kind of that shift, in that now the agent has no loyalty to them, right? You're just a company. And that kind of sucks, because there used to be relationship. I mean, our VP at Transamerica came to my dad's funeral because there was relationship there. And so that's changed, and maybe if anything, COVID, this industry is not going to be as relational as it used to be. And that's, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's the reality of finding your client the best product, but also in the process of doing that, you're also anti-selecting against a lot of what the product was designed to do in a boardroom. They didn't think out the product in a double wide or on a farm or in a Section 8 high rise. They thought just about this thing in their own little echo chamber. but agents just anti-select the heck out of some of these products and almost push many of them out of the market if they're not built in ways that you said to be able to handle a little bit of everything in a way. When they're able to take more, it balances their scales better. But I think there is a lot of advantages with the carriers that still have relationships, because you can get things done, you can get things discussed, or you can get told, no, that's just not how it's going to be able to work. And at least a human can tell you that, and not a faceless email address,
Right.
you know?
I agree.
So I think there is a lot to relationships, even in the distribution space. The longer you're here, the crowd of people that are still here is relatively small,
Yeah.
and relationships matter, and being patient with people, and not, there's a fine line between airing your grievances on social media and just handling things like adults quietly. Very fine line.
Right.
So I've been guilty of both, but I think, that's just evolution of life in the business. Where do you see our business going the next 5 or 10 years now that we get further and further from the COVID era and the post COVID era?
Uh, Man, I think it's gonna be good. I mean, it's the crazy number that everybody uses, how many people are turning 65 every day. I don't think our industry is in any type of danger maybe for the next 20 or 30 years, but I am a little worried, about all like the younger millennials, Gen X, the idea of what we sell, they've already decided that it's garbage, like you have Dave Ramsey who hates us, and he's an idiot, but you have Dave Ramsey who hates us, and he's kind of, and so, what's going to happen in 30 years? I don't know. I'm sure we'll be fine. But I would say our industry's solid. I think going through COVID took out a lot of agents that probably didn't need to be in the industry. So that's going to be even better. But, I'm grateful for guys like you because I could never do it. Guys who are still willing to train agents to do it the right way so that, this industry is going to be left in great hands. I don't have the patience. I tried it. It left me with big roll ups and I just, I'd rather run a really small team, but thank God for guys like you and some other bigger agencies around the nation right now who are training lots of guys. And I think the guys who are training those guys are the guys that should be. And so my hat's off to y'all.
Appreciate it. What do you think your keys to longevity are? I mean, you watched and you learned from your dad, and you're still doing it to this day. You didn't pass it off to private equity and roll out into the sunshine of the world. What are your keys to longevity from your experience?
Um, you know, I think there's always going to be something to say for being the person that the family calls when their loved one dies. And I know that a lot of agents are like, make sure you have this number because when your husband passes, they're who you want to call. Don't call me. I can't do as much. And I get, from a standpoint of production and being able to sell a lot, I get it. But there's always going to be something in this industry to be the point of contact when someone passes away, and you're the person they call, and you get that phone call and you give them your condolences, and you tell them how sorry you are, and you tell them everything's going to be okay. There's a policy in place. This policy is good, it's active, and right now you don't have to worry about the finances. Honestly, as archaic as that sounds, I think longevity is established through relationships like that, because you have a client for life, and no matter what the rate is or the company is or the whatever, they're going to be with you, and they're going to be with you till they pass, and then you're probably going to get their kids. And so longevity in this industry takes decades and decades and decades, but it's worth it if you can do it.
You guys do all brick and mortar? Or are there any field sales involved in what you do?
As far as like in person, is that what
Mhm.
you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we still do a lot of in person. um you know with clients that we know, of course, it's easier to do it over the phone. But yeah, I would say we're 50-50 right now.
Nice. Uh, did you guys always have an office, or was that something that came over time?
We've always had an office since I joined my dad. Um, and he always had an office before me. And so there was a little point in time where I wasn't working with him, right? Like maybe 2 or 3 years before I started with him, where he just did everything out of the house. But once I joined, um, I don't know. Everybody has their different preference. I think it's just preference.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it is nice. It's nice having an office and having a place where people can to come, or to store all your stuff or whatever.
Nice. Any words of advice to somebody, I'll wrap up with this, that's in the business but struggling in the business, doubting themselves, their structure, their systems, their upline, the whole thing in general. Maybe they're filling out job applications and trying to find an easier way to make a lot of money. Any words of advice to somebody that really wants it to work but is kind of doubting themselves right now?
And I would say, guys like you, Toolkit, guys like David Price, I don't think there's a reason anymore to not do really well in this industry. And so I would say you probably should take a look at who you're connected with, because there are really strong tools right now that maybe we've never had in the industry. And so, yeah, I would, I don't know if you were looking for the answer, like, just try harder, just, make those extra 100 phone calls or whatever. I've never agreed with that mindset. It's a very Wolf of Wall Street, and I just don't think that's what we do. And so take a look at who you're connected with, take a look at the support that they're offering. Make sure you're working at least 8 hours a day, right? I mean, at least work what everybody at McDonald's works. And if you can do that, it's probably not a reason you shouldn't be successful right now.
Yeah. I heard Sean Mike say in a video once, he's like, if you don't think you can sell one lead if you bought a week's worth of leads, like have some self-respect for yourself. You don't think you
Right.
can sell one policy?
Right.
But, I think we all go through it at certain points in times, but when you keep going, you find your way to where you're trying to go. If you keep turning left and you keep turning right, you never end up anywhere but driving in circles. So
Right.
stick with it. And before you know it, you can build a legacy of a business like you guys have done down in Texas. And I always say, my goal is to either build something big enough in my realm to pass it off to my kids or to pass it off to private equity, but to have something real and tangible that's there when I'm not. So
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing some thoughts with the world today.
Yeah,
And
man.
we'll get a chance to do it again sometime soon.
Thank you, Chris. Take it easy, brother.
You got it.